Bam! There we are on YouTube. Alright, and then hit start all. So there we go on Twitch and Kick. Alright, morning all. Already been at this a little bit this morning. I just kind of delayed getting on to streaming. Sometimes I get tied up in the work and dealing with Mojo drama and seeing what the latest installments on Rule 34 is. You know, just typical morning stuff. But I've started the outline. Everything I got here on the left-hand side is what I've started this morning. I started writing in a notebook about this yesterday. Finished the emergent chapter that I was on. Didn't stream it. I actually wound up doing most of the writing while I was sitting at the mechanics waiting for my truck to get fixed. And got a lot done. It took a lot longer than I expected. I thought I was going to be there for an hour. I was there for 3. But truck pull, my vehicle, is running wonderfully now. So yeah, chapter 6 went well. Not chapter 6. It's an emergent chapter. It's another emergent chapter. It's my emergent chapter 5_6. 5 has turned into multiple chapters. Am I caught up on that? Like, suddenly I'm wondering. Yeah, okay. So 5 became 5.5. An emergent chapter went in the middle of that. As soon as I finished that chapter, there was another emergent chapter that I haven't put into my notes just yet, and I don't want to because I'm pretty sure I have this document open on my tablet and on this, and if I have a document open on both my computer and my tablet and then I save them, it has some kind of saving issue where I'm not allowed to call it what I've been calling it. I hate that shit. So instead of making any like alterations or changes, I'm just gonna let that dangle and not put that in there, but I should. And this last chapter that I wrote, and I don't think I streamed any of it, is Garrett finally having a confrontation with Garth and talking to him about it and giving their elderly sick father wine and rich food and got a real idea as to like who Garth is as a person. Like they finally had a one-on-one, not something like done in public. And it pissed me off. I fucking hate that guy. I fucking hate Garth. Like I was so mad. And now I'm a little bit nervous going into this next section of writing where I don't know how many chapters it's going to be the way things break down of just dealing with Garth being in a position of power and swinging his authority around. And oh my god, fuck that guy. I've never like finished a chapter and just been like mad. Like I needed a beer. I had to have a beer. That's how irritated I was with this fictional character that I made up, who's, you know, based on somebody in real life who just annoys the fucking piss out of me with their goddamn attitude. But that's me being too sensitive to how people, you know, really are. I have not lowered OBS yet, so I'm just looking at my handsome, tiny self right there because my hair isn't doing this thing where it's obvious that it's starting to thin. Let's lower that and boom, get back on the Twitch. Alright, Twitch is visible there. Let's go ahead and pop up my ChatGPT conversation outline where I've been chatting with it. My latest chat, where it's devolved to, is how do I keep this spicy? How do I keep this interesting? Because this is another Inquisition scene. This is another accusatory scene. And I think I managed fine on the last one. I think I did okay. But this is... Yeah, like... This is not what I want to be writing. I don't want to be writing fucking Bridgerton high court drama shit. Like all this dialogue, all this conversation, all this character building, all this world building through dialogue exposition. Like it's kind of rough on me. I want to be writing action and demon gates and brutal battles and epic adventure. And this is so much just subtext. I'm writing so much subtext, and I'm paranoid as hell that like this is not going to have the same appeal the same ability to draw people in that the first book did, because I got to admit, like, the first one is good, and it's good. I've been reading it as I've been donating plasma, and it's like, this is engaging. Like, the whole time that I'm sitting there for like an hour squeezing my arm and pumping out my blood, it's it keeps me engaged. It's I did something really good with that, where the progression, like, you just kind of fall in, and I don't know if it's Arista, like, having the power of a siren and pulling you under, like, her waves, her emotions, or if it's Garrett being amusing. Like, I designed him to be a very bland character, and he's instead he's funny. Like, he's insightful enough, and I have to hold back so I'm not making him overly philosophical or overly authorial. That I can't let him speak too much for me. Like, I kind of have to restrain and hold back in order to, like, keep and build tension. So, and that's fun. And the fact that I'm able to make him just such a rawly physical character, and I'm realizing after this last chapter that I did that he's kind of got that same aspect that I have, where he will sit and deliberate and contemplate and try to choose the very best thing to do, like that slightly Hamlet nature, and then inevitably, when it comes down to it, just act rashly. Mojo, for the love of God, stop it, you. Stop. Stop. Asshole. So Mojo has a brand new litter box and is already ripping it apart and shredding stuff. I'm just being a little dick. But it's extra hot in my apartment because the weather is warming up. So now I'm trying to deregulate the heat a little bit. Alright. So Mojo, where we are at in this scene, and I just realized I got a light on. I need to save as much money as I can on power. Mojo, no, dude, stop. Bad boy, bad rabbit. Bad. So it's this really nice litter box that's like wood framed, and it's got a slats to put his hay in, and a little like dish tray that goes along with it, and it's too small for him, and it's got this plastic tray inside it, which should make like changing things very easy, and he can't move the whole litter box. But apparently he's figured out how to take the tray out. Stop. It's too shallow for him, so he's digging the litter out. Like, it sucks. It really sucks. It was a nice gift from my wife, but she didn't check the scale, the size of it. So I'm gonna have to go back to the old litter box, which is a nice big corner one. But then he moves the whole thing out of the corner and likes to like shove it around his cage. Mojo! Stop. You're being an asshole. Stop acting like a real victim here. Dick. All right. So, like I said, trying to keep this interesting. It's not the action that I got into writing to do. It's not the mythos. I want to be doing like grand myths and adventures like the Odyssey. And instead, a lot of these chapters are more based on Shakespeare and Plato and that sort of thing. So this is very in the head, but at the same time, like it works. I guess it works like metaphorically it is like being in your own head. That's what the whole thing is. Like, you have all these characters that, you know, can be seen as different aspects of the psyche, and the castle itself becomes a representation of your own skull. And so there's all this deliberation. So yeah, the activity of the castle becomes like an outer reflection of Garrett's own inner workings itself. Yeah, okay. So the allegory, the metaphor, and all this stuff. But like, I'm trying to write something that I will actually enjoy reading, especially because I have to go through and I have to edit this, and I'm not looking forward to the editing process. But that's where I get to judge things up and to make sure that it actually has that appeal and has that intrigue, and I'm creating proper tension. So right now I'm attempting to employ something that I just picked up last night watching more videos on how to write. Because, goddamn, if I don't love procrastinating. Is in order to start your chapters in an engaging fashion, you need to start it with like a bear at the door. So like there has to be a sense of urgency to the beginning of your scenes, to the beginning of your chapters, that compels the reader in order to go on. And so in this case, what I'm doing, because the last chapter was all heated debate and you know, back and forth between Garrett and Garth finally, and Garrett got heated. Garrett lost his temper at the end of that one. So Garth won it verbally and Garrett won it physically. Because again, Garrett will go physical. Like he'll, like in the end of the last book where he burns the boat in order to prove a point. Like he'll do something raw and physical in order to get his point across, because he is limited in words by design. Because if I made him too wordy and have too many answers for everything, well then he'd just be me. I can't do that. I have to make him a raw aspect of myself. So, for this chapter, in order to cool things down dramatically and to think in terms of like contrast and mirrors, as well as engaging tension, the Inquisition has began. Garth is sitting on the throne because the king is still ill and infirm, and he and the queen are both up on the dais, and they're flanked by courtiers on either side. While on one side is courtiers, on the other side is just people from the town, the kingdom. Maybe it's a city, ciudad. And then the people who are being questioned are being brought in one at a time. That's the way I have it set up. And I actually like did a whole setting thing, which I haven't done that in a chapter yet. So my outlining process is evolving as I go. We're in the intro. And what I'm trying to subtly seed through this is Garth is only questioning demi-humans initially. Like he's looking for guilt with the demi-humans, not relying on their expertise so much as trying to get something out of them. Like he wants this to be a demi-human thing. So, Sathrael is the first to be questioned. The scene should start with him already explaining something, I response to a question. That's happening a lot, where I just get I where I mean to say in, because my N key has completely just fucked off. Like, the key was gone, but I still had this little like nipple nub thing. That's gone now too. So now I think it only works when I apply pressure to the piece underneath it, and it's making like a mild electrical circuit with my finger or some shit. Like it's... I need a new laptop. But I don't have the $1,500 to buy a new laptop. I desperately need a new laptop, especially if I want to get back into doing like 3D modeling and get serious about doing any kind of animation stuff, like post my own Rule 34 content, because fun secret, that's how you can make the most money as an independent animator these days. So how I want the scene to start is I want Sathrael to already be answering a question that happened before the chapter actually began, and that's how I'm getting that early little bit of tension for the bear at the door. So I want him to be saying something that supplies the information that you need in order to know what was asked without actually framing that, and then have a little explanation as to Garth had his whole grandstanding speech about starting the Inquisition, because like he loves the attention on himself, and just as an author, especially after dealing with him over the last chapter, to be able to say that he talked endlessly and made a grand speech without actually having to write it. I appreciate that, and hopefully I made him irritating enough in the last chapter where people will be grateful that you don't have to read it. Because fuck that guy. I'm gonna see if I have any more coffee. That's my last little stipple. All right. So what I have is, no, we did not manage to identify any poison in the King's wine secured by Master Garrett. I think that's a great line, and it fucks with the reader a little bit and throws suspicion off, because Garrett finds the cask of wine under the bed, and you just assume, well, that's got to be where the poison is. But the fact that it's not in the wine throws things off. Like, it's... You don't want to break there. God damn it. Seated amongst the nobles, Arista is not with him. Now, is that good enough to start, or do I want him to start with a description of the poison first? Like, I could take this paragraph and move that up. So I'm just playing around with lines, trying to construct this speech, because Sothoryel hasn't really had much dialogue yet. First we introduce him by name through Miri's ramble, and then we see him sneaking around in the hall, and then we have him like just sort of emerge in a chapter where he's been there the whole time. We don't even know when he entered because he's so subtle and sneaky, and now he's actually like on trial. Perhaps start with like evidence. Again, B instead of Ben. That's annoying as fuck. Like for some reason the N is even more difficult to pop in than the M, which is also missing and in the same state. Yeah, that's annoying. As evident by the discoloration and discharge from his lungs. Again, lungs. Is a slow-acting agent, organic in composition, is evident by discoloration in the discharge from his lungs. Let's go to ChatGPT for this. I am working on Sathrael's court diagnosis. I need to know about plant and swamp based poisons the nature of the poison is that it weakens and not kill outright. Should require alternate factors to activate, like being mixed with food and wine. What the fuck? Heat or a post to be noticeable. Here is what I have so far. Real-world inspirations you can adapt. Below are plant swamp-based toxic profiles you can borrow traits from. Hemlock, slow paralytic model, real trait. Conium maculatum. Causes muscle weakness, progressive respiratory failure, doesn't always kill immediately. Symptoms can mimic illness, works through ingestion. Adaption traits for your story, progressive muscular weakening. Difficulty breathing, no dramatic convulsions, appears like wasting or fever, but hemlock kills too cleanly and directly for your purpose. Water hemlock, swamp variant, cicuta, grows in marshes and wetlands, extremely toxic, hard to identify when it's processed, roots are most toxic, too violent in real life, causes seizures, but its swamp origin and root toxicity are useful world-building tools. I don't think I want to use real-world plants. It's tempting. It's genuinely tempting, but what I often do is I'll take something that's real world and change the name of it. Like there's we have an herb that's very common called, I want to say it's Pioneer's Footprint, And in my own role, I call it Pilgrim's Footprint. Foxglove cardiac disruptor model Digitalis purpurea. Affects heart rhythm. Small doses can weaken, large doses kill. Therapeutic in tiny amounts, easily disguised in wine. This gives you gradual decline, fatigue, irregular pulse, confusion, pallor. A very good template. Okay. Ergot, fungus activation model. Claviceps purpurea grows on grain, activates when baked or processed. Causes weakness, delirium, vascular damage, historically mistaken for illness or curse. This is very interesting for you. It requires grain. It activates through preparation. It can affect multiple people differently. It fits court paranoia perfectly. What you want mechanically, based on your needs, your poison should be plant-based, be swamp-derived, require activation, heat, fermentation, digestion, not show up in wine when tested alone, create progressive weakness, affect lungs and strength, leave subtle organic residue. Strong option for your story. Combine traits into something like a swamp root resin. Properties: harmless when raw, when dried and powdered, it remains intact. Sorry, tiny little bug that I missed, you son of a bitch. It tells me spring is in the air. When mixed with alcohol, it binds when exposed to heat like warm spiced wine. It activates. When metabolized, it inflames lung lining and weakens muscular fiber. Symptoms: gradual fatigue, shortness of breath, mild coughing, discolored sputum, weak grip strength, difficulty standing, slow heart irregularity, no dramatic vomiting, no instant collapse. Feels like illness but calculated. Why wine tests would fail. South Rail can logically say the compound binds to lipids or proteins in cooked food and metabolizes rapidly once activated. By the time the wine is sampled, its structure is altered. The toxin may require stomach acids to convert into harmful form. That gives you an agent appears dormant until subjected to either fermentation or the heat of preparation. Once altered, it leaves no stable residue within the liquid itself. That sounds convincingly medical. Even more interesting, host-dependent. You mentioned requiring alternate factors. You could make it more reactive in someone already weakened, amplified by stress or fever, activated by alcohol consumption, dependent on a secondary compound. For example, the poison only becomes dangerous if consumed alongside strong red wine, salted meats, certain herbs common in royal kitchens, which means only the king with his habits is affected. Everyone else seems fine. That's terrifying. Politically powerful implication. It requires repeated small doses, specific preparation, knowledge of his diet. Then this was planned, internal, intimate, which raises suspicion toward kitchen staff, cupbearers, anyone near his routine, anyone with knowledge of swamp flora. Now your inquisition has teeth. His tone should not be dramatic. Something like the king's condition is consistent with prolonged exposure to an organic toxin. The inflammation observed within his lungs, coupled with muscular degradation, suggests a plant-derived compound. It is not fast-acting. It is intended. It was not intended to be. Then the absence of trace elements within the secured wine is not exculpatory. I don't even know what that is, so I can't use that. The agent appears to bind under heat and metabolize rapidly. What we test now is not what was consumed. Cold, precise, unemotional. When the knife, this was administered with patience. The bear at the door. Your bear at the door moment should be when South Rail says the king is not ill. Silence. Then he has been weakened. Not poisoned yet. Weakened. That word is political dynamite. Okay. I like that. The king is not ill. He has been weakened. Okay, so I think what I got from that is I want to use roots, like swamp plant roots, but not name them directly, but allude to them. Or I could have Sathrael list off several variants that could cause it. So nothing is identified, but we have a direction to go in that will later lead us to Yggdra, another character that I'm introduced, like the person who did craft the poison. So that, King is not ill. He has been weakened. This is intentional. This I am certain. Boom. The absence of trace elements within the secured wine is not exculpatory. Okay, I don't know what that is, but I'm assuming it means the absence of trace elements within the secured wine does not exclude it as the carrier. Rarely seen. Just popping in lines here. This was administered with patience. Just be popping in little notes. Ergot. So, okay. Looks like I'm looking at ergot and foxglove. Which foxglove is such a common, like you see that in a lot of stories where it's used as an agent for poisoning somebody. It's a very pretty flower. I love foxglove. I love the look of it. But as I understand, you can't even handle it. Okay. Swamp root resin properties: harmless when raw. When dried and powdered, remains inert. When mixed with alcohol, it binds. When exposed to heat like warm spiced wine, it activates. Okay, and then politically powerful implication, requires repeated small doses, specific preparation, knowledge of his diet. Again, this was planned, intentional, intimate, which raises suspicion toward kitchen staff, cupbearers, anyone near his routine, anyone with knowledge of swamp flora. So I'm being very analytical and cold with this, and at the same time, there's another layer of subtext where I only want Garth questioning demi-humans. So this line of Inquisition is all about him trying to vilify non-humans. Like 5 pages of just like random notes to go through for one little speech from a character. See, I'm leaning toward Garth alienating demi-humans. Should be a good, let's see what it says next. Witness. Let's see what it says to that. Oh good, if Chapter 6 is ice on the surface and fracture underneath, and using the Inquisition to quietly expose Garth's prejudice against demi-humans is elegant because alienation in court is quieter than open hatred. It's tone, it's who gets believed, who gets summoned like a person, and who is summoned like evidence. So your next witness shouldn't advance the poisoning plot, it should reveal fault lines. First, what kind of demi-humans exist in your world? Before I answer cleanly, I need one structural clarification. Are your demi-humans swamp-born, beast-blooded, sea king, kin, spirit-touched, or culturally distinct, physically non-human? So far in the cast is a dwarf, half-orc, half-high elf, cat girl, half-dark elf, Sathrael, and Arista, but no one knows for sure. I want to save Arista for last, since Garth is trying to build a case against her. And all kinds of typos because my keyboard is so fucked up. I'm suggesting I do Miri next for the cat girl, for the demi-humans, but I'm not sure. Swamp-born herbalist or forager, someone semi-reclusive, knowledge about wetland flora, long tolerated by the crown for practical reasons, never fully trusted by nobles. Yeah, I have somebody like that. For a swamp-born herbalist, I have one more character in the cast to introduce. Yggdra, the Swamp Witch, a beautiful troll woman with a lusty disposition. She is the actual crafter of the poison. I did not know who it was for. Various 2 is meant to blurt out her existence at some point when the Inquisition is going poorly. Perhaps after he is somehow implicated. Oh, perhaps by Miri, the cat girl. Okay, yeah, alright. Yeah. Alright. A lot of the design stuff happens as I'm writing in the descriptions of what I'm trying to do. Yeah, okay, this is excellent. Yggdra is not just a witness, she is a detonator, and if Gregarious blurts her out in a moment of pressure, this is not just plot progression. It is panic revealing truth. Let's shape this carefully. First, Yggdra's narrative role. She is a Swamp-born troll woman, beautiful, disarming prejudice expectations. Lusty, warm, charismatic, the actual crafter of the toxin, unaware of its royal target, likely accustomed to nobles seeking private remedies. She should feel earthy, confident, unashamed, a total tonal contrast to the rigid stone court, which makes her presence destabilizing. What kind of troll? Is she large, moss-skinned, luminous eyes, subtly tusked but elegant? Hair like dark reeds, skin with faint bark texture. The key is this: she must not look monstrous, she must look powerful and make Garth's alienation look small. Subtly tusked but elegant. Poison connection, she crafted a tonic, not a poison, perhaps a stamina draught, a virility enhancer, a restorative for aging men, a lung-strengthening decoction, but something alternate or requested modifications, or paid for concentrated form. This preserves her moral ambiguity without making her malicious, structuring the reveal. If you want Gregarious 2 to blurt her existence out, this means he is pressured first. Let's map the sequence. That's not a bad idea for sample. Yeager's thematic role, she represents nature, sensuality, swamp knowledge, outcast power, uncivilized wisdom, unashamed femininity. Yeah. She should contrast Sothoryell's cold, Garth's control, the king's frailty. She is heat in the reeds. Yeah. I like that sequence of escalation. I might want to sandwich someone in the middle, but then I don't want this to go too long, but I don't want it to be too incomplete. So I just can't go Sothoryell to Miri. It feels like I need to go Sothoryell and maybe throw Corvin in and then Miri. Oh, I gotta hit the lab. I'll be back. Okay. Just another thought. What if I abandoned the demi-human only Inquisition and showed bias through how Garth inquires, showing clear contrast. In his approach, who would be the next logical party to bring in? Thinking, fuck, that's annoying. Thinking Paraval, the court physician, although I have him slotted for chapter 7, I can use multiple chapters for this part, since inserting chapter breaks to my outline is expected at this point. It all matters how long each character / Garth talk for. Yes, abandoning a demi-human sequence is smarter. If Garth only calls demi-humans, the bias feels constructed. If he calls everyone but treats them differently, the bias feels real. Prejudice is revealed through contrast, not selection, and that's far more sophisticated storytelling. First, about Paraval. Paraval, the court position, is strong, but not yet. The South Rhyologist delivered the cold, clinical, this is poisoning diagnosis, bringing Paraval immediately does two things: it either confirms too quickly and removes tension, or contradicts too early, undermines South Rhyol. Paraval feels like escalation material, Chapter 7 material, because physicians deal in bodies. Chapter 6 is about narrative control, so hold him. So yeah, what I originally had for the outline is Chapter 6, Formal Inquiry Begins by Prince Garth. Now, Sothrayel didn't even exist as a character when I originally did this outline section. Arista reacts abrasively, worsens optics. Garrett defends her publicly, but has his own subtle doubts based on her comments the first night in the castle and the subsequent arguments. Garth offers helpful observations and suggestions to limit her access to the king. See, this feels like alternate chapters right here. Like, this has to be better divided. The king will have none of this and instead decrees he will spend more time with his future daughter-in-law. Many whisper that he may have been enchanted by her as well as Garrett. Blaine talks about decency, proper women of the court, and natural order. See, what I'm writing is completely... yeah. This outline, as I set it up, no longer works. So I have to write up a whole new outline, like basic block formula for what chapter 6 is. That sucks. That really sucks. Like, it's not like any of these parts is bad, but like chapter 6 is just formal inquiry begins by Prince Garth. Like, that's what I'm keeping. Everything else feels like it needs to be redone. So I like what I got set up with Sothrayel right now, but it's missing something. Like, I have to rewrite all of these sections over again. I have to divide them up. So formal inquiry begins by Prince Garth. Garth offers helpful observations and suggestions to limit her access to the king. So this is how I want things to resolve a bit. Okay. I've got some I've got some notions here. Garth begins the formal inquisitions by questioning Sothrayel first, since he is so evasive and aloof by nature. Sothrayel confirms or reconfirms what has been weakened. Suggesting the Master of Cellars or the Cupbearer, Aldrich, I want to say, which Aldrich and Albrecht are just too close. I'm having real issues with what the King's Advisor and what the Cupbearer are named. But that's something I can change in post, in the edits. Yeah, why not call Yggdrasil immediately? Because she's dramatic. Okay. Dwarf is the captain of the guard. The Inquisition at this stage will end with guards being sent after Yggdra. She will be imprisoned and brought in chains later. She is small-tusked and beautiful, intelligent, and observant. She flirts openly in the court and seems a bit too unbothered. Even jokes that she doesn't mind being bound, but typically in better circumstances than this. Yeah, this section is going to require more time to cook, brain-wise. Like, figure out who the next witness is. Control C. These are the two outlines I am working with. Sothrael did not even exist as a character when I wrote these. Refocus. Nothing is wrong. Just needs adjusting for pacing. Shit, I didn't include it. Good, that instinct, nothing is wrong with needs refocus is the mark of a writer leveling up. When a character like Sothrael appears after the fact, it's not just an addition, it changes the gravitational center of the scene. Core problem you're actually solving. The earlier outline was likely built around suspicion, emotional tension, progression, progressive accusation. Now that Sothrael exists, you have intellectual authority. Long notes for something where I didn't even focus in. You're not fixing broken structure, you're upgrading it to handle smarter tension. Yeah, okay. Let's pop in those two sections that I meant to initially. Good, now you see the real issue. Nothing in your outline is bad, your problem is distribution of escalation. Right now, Chapter 6, Politics, Optics, Whispering. Chapter 7, Poison, Logistics, Witch, Interrogation, Ocean Magic, Display, Confinement. Chapter 7 is doing too much heavy lifting. Yeah, but clearly, both of these chapters need to be like rewritten and divided across multiple chapters. Medical Confirmation, Procedural Investigation, Political Division, Witch Reveal, Arista Confrontation, Massive Magical Display, Fallout, Confinement. That's 3 chapters of energy compressed into 1, yet meanwhile Chapter 6 is comparatively light, so you don't need a rewrite, you need a redistribution. Yeah. It's giving me like bar graphs. Okay. What needs to move? Here's a cleaner fix. Move the physician identification of toxin up into Chapter 6. Sothrael now exists. He should be the one to identify poisoning in Chapter 6. That removes magic as primary suspect earlier, which changes the entire tone. Right now, Chapter 7 starts by identifying poison. That means Chapter 6 debates magic prematurely. With Sothrael in play, magic should already be weakened as a theory that sharpens the politics. So that's going against what it said earlier about bringing Parabol in. Now it's saying I should bring Parabol into Chapter 6. So we have the apothecary, and then we have the physician. So the fear was relieving too much tension, but I could use them both stacked one after the other in order to build tension, and then there's also the contrast of their characters, because Parabol is ridiculous and humorous and rambling, whereas Sothrael is cold and calculated. Like, I'm really starting to think about my characters as mirrors, so like if I put them together, what contrasts them? And with Sothrael and Parabol, you get like brilliant comic duo, where Sothrael is clearly a straight man and Parabol is Bud, not Bud, Lou. He's Lou Costello, and Sothrael is Bud Abbott. That's how they would be, except they're both skinny. Okay. Structure. Now it's recommending Sothrael, then Kayleen, then the Dwarf, then Pomeroy and Aldrich, Gregarious, Yggdra, and the Guards Dispatched. that's too much. Like, based on how my characters talk and me trying to keep the chapters from getting way too big, because I always want to have that, like, what's next, what's next, what's next. So there is really a temptation to make these short chapters. And even just make them one character after another. Like, I don't name my chapters, but by centering each, yeah, I got a lot to consider for this part. This sucks. This sucks, but this is the road of trials portion. This is the part where, like, things change. This is where writers tend to doubt themselves. This is where I almost always quit when I'm working on something, because this is the complications. This is it's the road of trials. My road of trial is practically a trial, except it's an inquisition. So I got to restructure and think about how this next, I don't know, 20,000. That's about how many words I'm going to be working with here. But yeah, I think I'm right starting with Sothrael, because that gives me the contrast. And I always got to be thinking in contrasts. Not enough to give people whiplash, but enough to rise and fall tension and to create these arcs. So I think I'm good for now. I gotta feed my animals. Oh yeah, it's after 8. Feed the animals, walk the dog, call the wife, do all that stuff. See if maybe we can get a date in tonight or something. Yeah, I'm having a... Yeah, I gotta redesign this section. You know, Arista reacts abrasively, worsens optics. Like, that's for later, because I want Garth to be building up to questioning Arista and attempting to stack as much evidence as he can against her. So I want new... Fuck you, caps lock. I want Garth to use the Inquisition to stack evidence against Arista. When he questions her, I want him to act as though his victory is secured, and then she turns it around on him. Somehow implicating him. That is when Gregarious 2 panics and mentions the troll woman in the swamp. All the questioning prior should build up to that moment. Fine, adding chapters, even if each character questioned demands represents their own separate chapter. Good, now we're getting to the spine of it. This no longer was the king poisoned. It is. Garth believes he has built a flawless case. Arista lets him think so. Then she turns the blade. Gregarious panics. Yadra detonates the narrative. That's excellent structure. You absolutely can. You probably should stretch this across multiple chapters. Political stacking works best when it feels cumulative, not rushed. Let's design this with a slow trap. The core dramatic shape. You want this arc. Garth methodically stacks circumstantial evidence. The court begins to learn his way. Arista is isolated. Garth questions her like a man already crowned. She calmly dismantles his logic. She implies his involvement. Gregarious panics. Yadra's name explodes into the room. That is clean escalation. Now you've built the ladder properly. Phase 1, establish poison. Authority, Sothrel confirms. Organic toxin, slow acting, not lethal by design, requires preparation. That gives Garth something to weaponize later, not meant to kill outright. He can imply someone wanted the king weakened. That aligns beautifully with succession politics. Phase 2, establish access, captain the guard, no breaches, no external infiltration, Pomeroy stores, Aldrich, cupbearer. Each witness removes random possibilities. Phase 3, build circumstantial Arista case. Garth begins to thread narrative. Arista has proximity. Arista is foreign. Important, Garth must sound rational. He must not rant. He should speak like a statesman, measured, sorrowful, reluctant, something like, it pains me to ask this, but the realm must be assured. Questioning Arista, this must feel like a checkmate. He should summarize all prior testimony, walk the court through it, lay out timeline, emphasize proximity, then she turns it, and that's where it gets sharp. Okay. Why Gregarious breaks? Because he knows the tonic exists, he knows he purchased it, he knows it was modified, he knows he cannot endure suspicion, so when Arista implies ask instead who visited the marsh, he cracks and blurts Yadra's name. That's perfect, it feels organic. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Alright. It's a lot to work on. But I think, yeah, no, this is going to work. This is absolutely going to work. I just got to stack it. I got to stack it very carefully. I got to choose my line of witnesses. And I can even bring in characters that have only been mentioned by name but haven't actually been introduced. I don't know if I need to. And I could bring in a liar. I could have someone come in who just blatantly lies, someone that we haven't seen before. Their only function is to come in and support Garth. Alright. I'm going to end my stream now. I'm going to take a break. Like I said, I got things I need to get done. Yeah, this whole section, and the fact that I'm not looking at one chapter right now, I'm trying to build multiple chapters, but I think I got a good start to how chapter 6, it's not going to be 6, this might be chapter 15, with the way things are going, the way things are breaking down. It might be in my best interest, even at this point, since I'm trying to approach it like I'm almost writing another book, to go through and do my outline over again. And a smart way of doing that would be to go through and don't want to commit to doing my chapter breaks just yet. I really don't, because it's a lot to get through. Yeah. I'm in a replotting phase right now. Reworking the outline, but I think what I've got set up for chapter 6 is going pretty well. But yeah. So this is quite literally a witch hunt. We're trying to stack things towards Garth making a solid accusation against Arista, and then Arista turning all of that around. And Arista has the inside edge because she's got Miri on her side to give her information. She's got Garth laying things out that implicates him. And just the fact that he is the next crown prince. Like, he's the most likely guy. So the fact that he's leading the court proceedings is entirely ridiculous. And I even have him, like, sitting on the throne, posturing as the king already, which just seems sus. But his mom has to sit beside him, which, proves how debased and lower he really is. So, thank you, anybody who's been observing me and watching me. I appreciate it. I don't know if I'll be back on today. I'm donating plasma, and that always wipes me the fuck out.